welcome to the chaos. And this is the second week of my series of prepping for the Ren Fair and making mostly Ren Fair inspired things. So as I've said before, I have plenty of the other kind of more regular things. So what I need to focus on more is the Ren Fair stuff. So I'm going to work on that. So last week when we left off, I had made up to 11 of the mushroom guys and 10 of the goblins. And I'd started trying to make my little woodland spirits, but didn't have the right skin tone color. So I had to put that project aside. And my plan was to start on Mothman this week, or moths, not necessarily specifically Mothman, the cryptid. So of course, instead of doing that, I started the week by making baby gifts for my up-and-coming little niece. So I asked her mother what they were doing their nursery in, and she was saying like Winnie the Pooh, like the classic Winnie the Pooh, and Piglet was her favorite character. So we have this little one that I made from mashing together a couple of different patterns and kind of inventing a new technique for the striping as I went. So this one is just kind of a free-handed little Piglet plushie. She's on a shelf or laying in her bed. Obviously not when the baby's in there. She don't leave toys in the bed with the baby. And then I also wanted to make her a snuggler. So this one, this is a combination of things. So this is the Mama Made Minis snuggler pattern blankie body with the mini rabbit. I can't remember what the rabbit's name is. It's not Dakota. I think that was the dragon. I don't remember. I don't remember what the mini honey bunny. That's what it is. Mini honey bunny. So mini honey bunny head, and then the ears from another just separate pig pattern. So altogether that became this smuggler. So I was using this same pink for this one and this one. And I decided I wanted to just go ahead and use it up because it was an older skein of burnout blanket, and I kind of just wanted to get rid of it and be done with it. So the next thing I decided to make was another one of Fox and Fae's Mew pattern, which is one that I actually pattern tested for her. And I sold the first one I made a long time ago. I think I sold it at GalaxyCon this summer. So it's been overdue to make another one. So here she is out of that same yarn. Now, since this is the older burnout blanket, it does work up a lot bigger. So you can see she's pretty big. She's a decent size. But I just love this pattern. It works up fairly quickly. And it's just the perfect shape. Like the way that she does the nose shaping to get that shape to the head, it just is perfect. Now the pattern calls to use a foam covered hair curling rod in the tail so that you can curve it, which I did try to do with the last one I made with the burnout blanket, but I discovered that the yarn is so heavy that the foam roller doesn't really stand a chance of holding it up in any case. So for this one, I'd stuffed the tip and then stopped stuffing when I got here and just left this empty. So it's just a wavy, floppy tail. And I could have tacked it up, but I thought it was more fun just to have like this. And I can always like drape it over his legs sitting on the table or whatever. And then these are hand painted eyes. These actually have little, I don't know if you can see them, little stars inside them. These turned out really pretty. I like these. I should probably make some more of them. So I made Mew. And then I had just a little bit of that pink yarn left. So I took my little Eevee pattern that I have, my most recent pattern, and I adjusted the head shape a little bit, and I made Baby Mew. And I had just enough of this pink yarn to make 2 of these little baby Mews. I think I have like a scrap ball left, but it's not really enough to do anything, so it'll probably be added to my scrappy snake at some point. So that was the pink. So I finally used up all the pink. Then, instead of making the moths that I had intended to make, I decided to try a whole brand new pattern. Many of you guys have seen the new viral goose pattern that Crochet Grove just came out with, the one that sits on a shelf. And I thought it was really cute and I really liked it, but goose just don't really fit my aesthetic and where I'm kind of leaning with the stuff in my stall. I'm trying to make it more fantasy and nerd game type related, more my hobbies and interests, and less just the regular generic animals, so that I stand out a little bit from the crowd and I don't just have the same things that everybody else has. But I really wanted to try the pattern because it was really cute. So instead of making a sitting shelf goose, I modified the pattern a little bit as I went along, and I came up with a sitting shelf dragon. So this is a dragon to guard your bookcase. And it's the goose pattern from the nose all the way up to here, and then I continued the tail until I felt like it was long enough. I freehanded this little tip on the tail. I surface crocheted wings, and I've done several other dragon patterns that do wings similar to this, so I just kind of freehanded wings like those. And then I freehanded arms and legs so that he is sitting on all fours. And then I gave him little eyelids, give him a little bit of a angrier dragon look. Let me see if you can see him, but he sits really nicely on the shelf and just guards your books. There's my shelf dragon. I thought that was fun. I enjoyed that one. So then after that, I was finally ready to do what I had actually been planning to do this week, which was make the moth guys. So I started with black because I had some black fur, and I made 2 in black with red eyes. And I added a little bit of a fur detail to the inside of their antenna because they just look kind of like cat ears to me until I added the fur. Now they look more like moths. And there's their wings. Okay, so let me show you the other colors, and then I'll tell you about some things I did different with this pattern. So then the next color I did was orange, and it's actually the burnout blanket orange leaf. So more autumn colored, and I had some of this sort of mustardy color fur. I'm kind of going with like what fur colors I have, matching yarns to those fur colors. So we have the mustardy colored fur with the orange leaf yarn. And then finally I did 2 in these kind of yellow tones. Now this first one, this one, was made with a leftover like half skein I had of the burnout blanket ombre yarn in like a orange, like a yellow to orange sort of fiery tones. So this is what was left of that. I finished that off making this one. And so I wanted another one that was in this same color family to go with this sort of gold colored yarn. So I went with the Premier Basic Chenille Curry and made this one. And I used the very last of that other yarn to make the wings on this guy, so they'd stand out a little bit. So that's these 2. Now this one I'm not sure what I did. I must have skipped a row in the head or miscounted my stitches or something, because this one's head is much smaller than all of the others' heads. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what I did. But anyway, so I made 6 moths this week. Now these are the Fox and Fae Crochet pattern. So it's all pretty much all Fox and Fae week between this and Mew. For Maeve the Moth is what it's called on her Etsy shop. And she has you making it with a decent amount of sewing. You sew on the head to the body, you sew the arms in, you sew the wings on, and then you sew the antenna on to the head. I looked through it, and I knew looking at it that I could adjust things a little bit so that they would be less sewing. And I'm going to share with you what I did. So if you want to get this pattern and try it, you can also use this method if you like. So the first thing I did was to make all of the little separate pieces. So I made the wings and set them aside. I made the arms, and you crochet across the top, and I set them aside. I made the antenna and set them aside. And then you start with the legs, and you connect the legs like usual, and work your way up. When you make the arms, the instructions for the arms says to sew them in at round 13, I believe. So when you get to round 13 of the body, what I did was when I was alongside the leg, I crocheted in that arm, worked my way around the back, and then when I was alongside the other leg, crocheted in that arm. So that way the arms were crocheted in. The next row after the arms is a decrease row. So I worked the row as it was written with the single crochets and decreases where they needed to be, but I put the wings on the back in between, like evenly in between the arms, and crocheted through the top 2 stitches of each wing, like in the place that it was supposed to be. Now, on both of them, they did wind up going in a decrease space. So I put a single crochet into the first one, and then I went through the wing and decreased on the body, and then I finished attaching the wing. So it's a little bit complicated if you're not used to doing that, if you've never done it before. But once you've done it once or twice, it's really not that hard. And I've done the same method with a few other things that have arms or legs or whatever attached in a decrease row, where you're decreasing on the body but just attaching a limb as you go. So that's what I did for that. So that made the arms and the wings both no-sew. And then at that point on the body, you would finish, and you would have already made the head, because the head is the first thing in the pattern, and then you would sew them together. So instead of doing that, when I got to this point on the body, I went to the head instructions and I worked them backwards from the bottom up. So at the bottom of the pattern, you'd be in decreases. Well, I do increases where it says decrease. And then when you get back up here where it says increase in the pattern, you decrease. So that way I was able to just keep going on into the head. And the antenna wound up being the only things that had to be sewn on. It takes a little bit of mental gymnastics to work a pattern backwards like I did for the head. But if it's difficult for you to do that, you could take the pattern and just hand write the head instructions out backwards, if that makes it easier for you. It's a very simple, it's just a circle. So it's a very simple increase up to a certain point, X number of rounds around, decrease down till you're finished. So it's not that hard. It would be harder on other patterns that are a little bit more complicated, I feel like, but this one, it's just a simple circle. It worked well for that. And then of course I embroidered in the fur details on the antenna, and then this is surface crocheted around the neck. I did leave a front loop open when I did the first row into the head to give me some place to attach this to more easily. You don't have to, but it just gives you something that you can see more easily work into. But that's it. That's what I did for this week's prep for Ren Faire. So I now have 6 of the Maeve the Moth creatures to go. And I have some more fur colors that I plan to use. I have one that's kind of like a royal blue. I bought it for this guy right here. So I have some of this color left. So I'm going to find some yarn that'll go with that. And then I have like a teal colored one. And I think I have a lighter like cream colored one. And I have a gray colored one. So I have 6 right now. And I'd like to make at least 4 more. We'll see. So I'll start with the blue. I know I've got a dark blue to go with this blue fur. So we'll start with that one and then see what else I can find to match my other fur colors until I have 10 of the moths. So I only need 4 more. So that'll be the start of next week. And then I'm not sure what exactly to work on after that. I guess I can work on the woodland spirits with a different skin tone if I just choose a different skin tone color. Or I can do dragons. I also need dragons. That's going to be my plan. And I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.